So like I said, we are still going to be looking at factoring by grouping. So this is the same category we were looking at yesterday. We're just going to be adding some specifics now of what to do when some negatives show up, right? Everything you've been doing at this point, if you haven't noticed, has involved addition and positives. Now we need to put in some negatives. Some of it is pretty straightforward. So maybe if we have 3n to the third power minus 12n squared plus 2n minus 8. Steps are still the same. We're still going to split this in half. Okay, we're still going to look at each side individually and factor out a GCF of each side. So over here on the left-hand side, right, what goes into 3, that will also go into 12. We're going to pull out a 3. They both have the variable. That smaller exponent is 2. Okay, so when we divide this out, 3 divided by 3 gives us 1. We subtract, we're left with an n. Now we have to follow that subtraction sign. We did that when we were factoring out a GCF, so that should be fine. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Those n squareds gone. Okay, so there's our left-hand side. That should seem just like yesterday, other than the fact that now we have a subtraction in there. We're gonna do the same thing on the right-hand side, right? So over here, our GCF is gonna be 2. So we'll divide that out, which will leave us with an n minus 4. Everything's still fine. We still match up, no problem. Okay, so we can put our GCFs together, which will give us a 3n squared plus 2 and an n minus 4. Okay, so if it's subtractions like that, we're all good, no problem. Okay, let's take a look at another one here where maybe we have a little bit more to consider. So let's say we're given 2r to the third plus 12r squared minus 5r minus 30. So same process, we're still gonna split this in half. Okay, but now when we split this in half, again, we talked about it, make sure that negative's over here. You can already start to notice that our signs aren't gonna match up. Okay, your left-hand side over here, you are going to factor just like we have been factoring. So regardless of signs, straightforward factor it like we have been. So 2r squared is gonna be our GCF. So we'll get an r plus 6 with the 2r squared out front. The difference happens over here on the right-hand side. So when you are factoring the right-hand side, if right here, right after you split, if the first term of this right-hand side is negative, if it's negative, okay, you are going to factor out a negative. If that leading one right after where we split it is negative, you have to factor out a negative. Now, don't let that negative confuse you. When you go to find the GCF, ignore that it's a negative at all. Just ask yourself, what goes into 5? That will also go into 30, which is 5. They both don't have the R variable, so nothing we can pull out there. But because this leading one is negative, we're just going to throw a negative on that 5. And now when we divide, you might need to use your calculator to check to make sure you're getting your signs correct. Okay, a -5 divided by a -5 is going to be a positive. So we're just left with a positive r. A negative, right, this is a -30 divided by a -5, which will give us a positive 6. So our GCF that we're pulling out here in front is now that -5. So now when we go to write our two binomials, okay, we're going to pull out our two GCFs. We'll have 2r squared, but now we have a -5. So we have a 2r squared minus 5 and an r plus 6. Okay, I want to look at one more like this. (12k to the third minus 27k squared minus 40k plus 90 . So if we want to factor this by grouping, right, we're going to split it in half. The left-hand side, this first part that we do, we're going to do just like normal. So we want to think of what goes into 12 that will also go into 27. So these numbers are slightly bigger, so if you miss something and you have to divide more than once, it's fine. Just make sure you're multiplying and writing the full GCF out in front. Okay, but we see 3 goes into each of them. Smaller exponent is 2. 12 divided by 3 is 4. We're left with a k. 27 divided by 3 is 9. Those k's are canceled. And then we'll do the right-hand side. Now again, right here, right after where we split, our leading one is negative, which means we're going to find a GCF just like normal. So what goes into 40, that will also go into 90. We can divide out a 10. They both don't have the K. Can't plot that. But because this is negative, we're going to put a negative on that 10. So a -40 divided by a -10 is a positive 4K. And a positive 90 divided by a -10 is a -9, right? That ends up making our two binomials match, which is what we need to happen. We will put our GCFs together, 3k squared minus 10, and our common binomial of 4k minus 9. Okay, you then have a worksheet you're going to be working on for the rest of class. The answer key is posted up in the front of the room, so if you do need to check, that is available. You are going to have to turn that worksheet in at the end of class, whether you have it finished or not. It's going to be collected. That's what I'm going to be using for your participation points today. So have a good rest of the day. Have a great weekend. I will see you all on Monday.